Hey guys, Virtus here and welcome back to the Unreal Engine 4 survival horror game series, and in today's video we're going to be showing you how to create a advanced flashlight that uses battery power. So having said that, whenever the player presses the F key on their keyboard, it's going to turn on a little spotlight that's going to allow them to see their environment a little bit better, and at the same time we're also going to have a little HUD display which actually shows the player exactly how much battery they have. And to actually fill up that battery, we're going to have these cool little pickups in the game that the player has to collect. If he runs out of battery, he simply can't turn it on. So let's go ahead and get started and show you how we can do all of this. Now, if you want to get up to date with the survival horror game series, I definitely advise you check out the thumbnail to see the last video. Also, if you haven't seen the Unreal Engine 4 beginner tutorial series, I also advise that you go ahead and check that out, just so you can get yourself familiar with the engine, easily understand and follow along. So let's get started. So the first thing that I need to do is I actually need to go into the player character and start setting up the component for the light. And it's going to be this light that we actually toggle on and off for the flashlight. So let's go ahead and do this. So I'm going to go ahead and open up my third person character, or whatever character you're using, and I'm not going to create a new variable, ignore that. I'm going to add a component, and that component is going to be a spotlight. And this spotlight will then be spawned in your viewport inside of your character. So let's go ahead and do this. So I'm going to go ahead and open up my third person character, or whatever character you're using, and I'm not going to create a new variable, ignore that. I'm going to add a component, that component is going to be a spotlight. And this spotlight will then be spawned in your viewport inside of your character. Now, by default, the spotlight should be turned on, and as soon as I press play, you should be able to actually see it in the scene. You can see there's some slight clipping issues with the character, so we've actually got to set up the placement. Also, we don't want it to be turned on by default. So let's go ahead and make a few changes. So I'm going to go ahead and open up my third person character, or whatever character you're using, and I'm not going to create a new variable, ignore that. I'm going to add a component, and that component is going to be a spotlight. And this spotlight will then be spawned in your viewport inside of your character. Now, by default, the spotlight should be turned on, and as soon as I press play, you should be able to actually see it in the scene. You can see there's some slight clipping issues with the character, so we've actually got to set up the placement. Also, we don't want it to be turned on by default. So let's go ahead and make a few changes. So first things first, I'm going to drag the spotlight up a little bit and make it pretty much in front of the face, just like this. So now, if I compile it and press play, it should look a little bit better, just like that, and it's following the player, which is quite quite nice. So the next thing I'm going to do then is I'm also going to just up the brightness a little bit because it's not too bright, and I'm going to set that to something like 20,000. For some reason you have to set it incredibly high to actually, be able to notice it, and you can see I can now. So I've set it up to 20,000 and it's quite bright. That's perfect. The player can see that, it's working perfectly. So now that we've done that, I'm also going to do one more thing. I'm actually going to attach the spotlight to the follow camera. So now it's going to move with the follow camera, and you're going to notice it goes up and down as well. So we can look down, we can look up, side to side, and all that great stuff. So if you wanted to, you could go and do other stuff to it, like you could change the light cone, you could add a IES texture if you have any of those, temperature, and a bunch of other stuff. But for now, I'm just going to leave it at the default setting. It works great. So one last thing, sorry, I forgot to do is I actually need to just turn it so it's not visible. Just press the button to turn off visibility, and if I press compile, press play, we won't be able to see it in the game now. That is exactly how we want it. So what we need to do now then is whenever the player presses the F key on the keyboard, we need to change the visibility to turn it on. So once again, I'm going to set up a proper key binding, and to do that, I'm going to go into the project settings, and then once we've got that up, I'm going to open up the input inside of the engine stuff. You can see we've got the sprint stuff. We got the jump stuff. Let's create one more of these, and this is actually going to be just called flashlight. And of course, we're going to be able to reference this inside of the blueprint editor. And the key I'm going to use for this is just keyboard. I'm going to press F. See if I can find it that way. There you are. If you wanted to, you could also set up controller stuff for the gamepad. So you can use the face buttons and such, but for now, F should be just great for us. It's not bound to anything else just yet. So I'm going to go ahead and close that, and I'm going to open up my third person character again. And this time, instead of being inside of the viewport, let's go over to the event graph and we'll start working on the functionality. So I'm going to get some blank space, and I'm just going to right click anywhere and type in flashlight. Now, you can see we've got buttons for pressed and released. We're only really going to be working with pressed, so when the player presses it once, it turns it on, and when the player presses it again, it's going to turn it off. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up some conditioning to see whether or not the flashlight is on. And we're going to do this using a variable called isFlashlightOn, just like that. And we're going to be changing the value of this whenever the player actually presses the button. So if the flashlight is on, then we're going to toggle, we're going to get a reference to the spotlight camera, and we're going to set visibility, and we're just going to set the new visibility visibility to untrue. That's if it is on already. So I'm going to hook this up just like that. And because they're trying to turn it off, what I'm going to do is I'm going to set is flashlight on, and we're just going to set that to untrue. So we uncheck it. And then now we've got to do the same thing over here, and we just pretty much reverse it. So we want to change the visibility to on, we hook this up to false, and we set it to on. So let's give this a go now. And if I go ahead and press play, if I press F, you can see the flashlight comes on, and it's looking quite nice for us. And if we press it again, it turns off. On, off. And if I was also to go ahead and drag this over here, my little third-person character blueprint window, whenever I press F and on and off, you can see it's working in our script just great. So that is the main part of the flashlight setup, but the harder part now is actually going to be setting it up to use battery. So the way we're going to do this is we're going to create a new variable, and we're going to call this variable player battery, just like that. And under the details panel, we need to change the variable type to a number. So we're going to work with an integer, and we're going to set the default value to something like 50, just so the player actually starts off with a tiny little bit of battery. And we're going to press compile. And now, in the same place that we actually have been doing the stamina and the hunger regeneration and stuff, we've got to set it up so it takes away the battery if the isFlashlightOn variable is true. So the way we're going to do that is we're going to grab the sequence node here, and we're going to add a pin, so we have a third one, so it does another sequence of events. And I should probably tidy this up a little bit, Also, one thing I do want to note is that if you're not using the event tick stuff already, you can just go ahead and put it straight into event tick instead of sequence. Okay, so the last sequence then, so the sequence that we need to do to actually set up regeneration and stuff, well, not regeneration, but to take away from the flashlight battery is to check whether or not it's on. And the way we're going to do that is using the branch node. We're going to grab the branch node, and under the condition, just get a reference that is flashlight on. And if it is true, so if the flashlight is on, we need to do add in a delay. So basically every 1 second it's going to take away, or every 0.2 seconds, it's going to take away from the flashlight. And the way that we're going to take away from the flashlight value is we're going to set the battery, and we're just going to do integer minus integer. And what we're going to do here is just take the player battery, get the value of itself, and then just minus something like 1 away from that. So if we press compile, and it should start working for us. So I'm going to quickly print a string here. And I'm going to hook this up to the return value so that we can actually see if it's going down when the flashlight is on. So I'm going to press play, press F, and you can see it's going down quite quickly and it's working great for us. Now, what we also need to do is we need to set up a bunch of stuff to actually turn it off if it gets down to 0, and we also need to make sure or it cannot be turned on if it doesn't have enough battery already. So the way we're going to do this is we are going to go and move all of this stuff over, and before we actually turn it on, so the false side of things, we are going to add in another little branch, and that's just to check whether or not the value is greater than zero. So we're going to get the player battery, get a reference to that, and condition integer is greater than, so this one here returns true if A is greater than B. So now A has to be greater than 0. So what I'm going to do here is if I press compile and press play, if I press F, we're going to let it get down to 0, and then we're going to turn it off again, and hopefully it should stop us from actually turning on the flashlight again. So if I press F now, it's not turning on. And you can see that in our little graph here. So if I press F, oh, I'm about to die in the game, and I did. Give me a second, press play. I'm going to press F, and you can see it's turned on. I'm going to let it go down to 0 again, which should take just a couple of seconds now. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, so if I press F now, you can see it just goes straight to false. It doesn't move anywhere from there. And that is working just great for us now. There is also one other thing that I need to do. So if the flashlight isn't on, or if the flashlight is on, I need to add another sequence of events. And this sequence of events is just going to check whether or not, the player actually has enough flashlight to keep it on. So what we're going to do is if it's not higher than, if the flashlight is, mind freeze here. Okay, so if the flashlight then is above, if the battery is below 0 or equal to 0, we're going to turn it off. So that's what we need to do. Had a little bit of a brain freeze here. Always happens, but yeah. So what I'm going to do for that then is I'm going to press branch, and I'm going to put that up in between here, just like that. And what this branch is going to do is just check whether or not the player battery integer is equal to or is greater than 0. So I'm going to grab the player battery and I'm going to hook that up there. And if it is, it's going to do this sequence of events where it just pretty much takes away from the battery. And if it's not greater than 0, meaning, it's gone below, we've run out of battery, we just need to simply switch it off. So I'm going to get a reference to the spotlight again. And what I'm going to do from here is just toggle visibility, and I am just going to hook this up to the false over here. So now Now, hopefully it should turn off the spotlight. And also, one last thing we need to do from here then is turn off the flashlight value variable. So we're going to make sure that is untrue. So I'm going to press compile. I'm going to press play. And if I press F, will turn it on, and hopefully it should also turn it off. So let's have a look, give it a couple of seconds. 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and it's turned itself off. And whenever I press F again now, I can't actually turn it on again. And that is working just great for us. So that's pretty much everything that I wanted to go over in this video. The next thing that I'm going to be doing is showing you how to create the little battery pickups. So when the player walks over them, they get more battery for their flashlight. It's really simple to do, and it works exactly the same as the hunger system. We're just going to be adding to the variable. So, thanks for watching, comment, like, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video. Goodbye.
Always wanted to build your own games? You should take game development courses on Udemy. They've got fresh new courses, all taught by expert instructors. You'll learn C++ from scratch, build your first game in Unreal, get the latest knowledge in modern game development, everything you need to know, and all for the price of lunch. You can take the courses at any time on any device, and if they don't work out, you can always get your money back
ルフィたちは結婚を迫られ一味の元を去ったサンジを取り戻すべく四皇ビッグマムのいるホールケーキアイランドに潜入した。別ルートでホールケーキシャトーに潜入していたブルックとペドロはロードポーネグリフの写しを手に入れるために動き出していた。
私の意味を知らねえだろ、ベイビー。ソウルキングだぜ。取ってつけたようなソウルが私の執念のキャーマセイの叫びの前に立ってられるはずないんだぜ。
一方ホールケーキシャトーで囚われの身となっていたルフィとナミの前にはプリンが現れた。
あのね、二人に伝えなきゃいけないことがあるの。
どうしたプリン？
実は私サンジさんにプロポーズされたの。
さよならプリン、涙の決意。
嬉しかった。でもサンジさんは私を気遣ってくれてるだけよね。私はみんなを苦しめてる。
そんなこと。
だから安心して。私結婚しないわ。聞いて。
おい待てプリン！
さよなら。
レイジは
さあな、さっきどこかへ出てった。
緑ちゃん、緑ちゃん、緑ちゃん、こっち。
茶より酒だろう。
どちらかといえば。
お茶。
それより父上、結婚した後サンジたちはどこに住むことに？
ジェルマに決まっている。
じゃあサンジにやられた分じっくり仕返しができるな。
大事なのは娘の方だ。あの娘を人質にしておかねば今後どんな要求をしてくるか。相手は海賊だぞ。
なるほど、人質ね。
向こうも何かあった時のためにサンジを人質にしていんじゃねえの？
バカ言えニジ。
あ？
もしそうだとしてもサンジを殺すと言われて我々が動じるか？
確かに。
だよな。
楽しみだな。またサンジと暮らせるなんて。
入るナス。
ああ、お使いご苦労。
お安いご用ナス。報告ナス。現在麦わらのルフィと泥棒猫を拘束中ナス。
ルフィとナミさんが。大丈夫だ。
明日プリンちゃんとの結婚式が終わればルフィたちは解放される。俺はそのためにビッグマムと。
明日の今頃はジェルマの軍事力を得てみんなでおいしいウェディングケーキを食ってるからさ。お前が逃げなきゃ全てが丸く収まるんだサンジ。
そして今なお暴れているのはミンク族の男とソウルキング。小生スムージー様、卵男爵たちが鎮圧に向かったナスが護衛はかなり手こずって。
もういい。頼んだ食材は？
ああ、これナス。腹減ったんなら何かナスでも。
遠慮しておく。このキッチン使うぞ。
え？
プリンちゃん、夜の会食に来なかったから何か作って持ってくんだ。
そうなんすか。
心配だしな。
まだ気分が優れナスらしくて。
ブレレの能力を使って鏡の中と外を出入りできる。この世界から島中を移動してみんなを探そう。
ソウルキングのティアマ星の叫びはまだまだ続くんだぞバイベー。
Coding your own games is easier than you think. You know, you should take this online Unity.
Hey.
あとはティアマ星の叫びを聞かない連中だぜ。 鍵だ。おいおれ、派手にやってくれるじゃねえか。そりゃそうでしょう。スワロー・バンデロル。私、相棒に死に目にあってくれ。
What's up? What's good, guys? This is One Piece, episode 8.
得るもの得なくちゃ面目丸つぶれでしょう。誰が潰れる面がないだないだないだないだ。
警備兵聞こえるか。返事をしろ。
急がなければ。これですね。ペドロさん、必ず。
はこの中か。
まあまあ、わざわざ来なくてもここは私が。
どいてな、スムージー。誰だい？俺のお楽しみに手をかける。身の程知らず。おや？これは珍しい生き物。おかしいわね。あなたは。
侵入者が中庭手前通路を通過。挟み撃ちだ。総員 久しぶりだボン。
卵男爵。
ノックス海賊団キャプテンペドロ。敵ながら私は君に一目置いていた。顔を合わせると互いに左目の傷がうずくでとわえもは5年前あれほどまでに生きることに執着した男がなぜまた同じことを繰り返す。もうろくに生きられぬはずですぐれ。あの日お前はママから50年の寿命を奪われているのだボン。
ああ、承知の上だ。俺はもう生きて故郷に帰る気などない。
I knew it. I've dreamt about this.
Hey, guys.
Tommy!
You don't have to do it alone this time. We're here to fight by your side.
You've more than lived up to the legacy we've left for you. We're all very proud of you. Thank you. It's an honor to meet you.
Ah, the honor's all ours. Why don't you take the lead?
Ready, guys? It's morphin' time! Go, go, Megaforce!
I love being a Power Ranger.
Ready, Ranger?
The Intel Software channel is where you will find videos featuring news and information about Intel technologies, tools, services, and
Hey guys, Virtus here and welcome back to the Unreal Engine 4 survival horror game series. And in today's video, we're going to be continuing on with our flash battery system. So if you haven't watched the previous video where we created the battery and flash system, where you press F to toggle the battery on and toggle the flashlight on and off, and we also have a variable to control, the player's battery. If they've got enough battery to use the flashlight, then they can. If they're all out, then they simply can't turn it off. So that's what we did in the past video, and in today's video, we're going to be showing you how to create a simple little pickup for your battery system. So whenever they walk over this battery object, the player will collect it. And from there, they're actually going to be able to use their flashlight a little bit more. It's quite simple stuff really, so hang on tight, sit back, relax, and I hope you enjoy it. Also, one other thing that I do want to note is that if you haven't actually seen the Unreal Engine 4 beginner tutorial series, I also advise that you go ahead and check that out, just so you can easily understand and follow along. Anyway, without further ado, let's get started. So I'm going to start off by showing you exactly what we did in the last video, and that was whenever I press F, the player's got a little flashlight, and whenever they move around they can see it. Also, in the top left hand corner, you can see we've also got a variable being displayed for the battery, and when it gets down to 0, it turns it off. Also, if it is 0, the player can't turn it back on again. So what we need to do now is actually give the player a way to collect more battery. And we're going to be doing this in the form of a little battery pickup box. So what I've actually done is create some cool little textures for a basic battery box that the player can collect. Once they walk over it, gives them a bit more battery and they can use their flashlight again. Once again, all of the textures are going to be available in the download link in the description. So inside of there, I'm going to have a normal, emissive, and a diffuse map. So let's start off by going over the functionality side of things first. So the way I'm going to do this is I'm going to create a new blueprint actor. And this actor is essentially going to be the battery and battery pickup. And I'm going to call this battery_pickup for now. I'm going to open it up and we're going to have to add in a few components. So the first one I'm going to add is a cube, and this is just going to be the physical representation of the battery. To this we can apply the material and all of that cool stuff. And then the second side of things that we're going to do is I'm going to create a box collision. So using this collision, whenever the player walks into it or begins overlapping it, we can actually fire off a sequence of events. And this sequence of events is just going to be adding to the player battery variable. So one thing I do want to note with the box collision is you want to make sure that it encapsulates the entire physical representation of the box. So you can go ahead and scale it up, but for me, I'm just going to set the scale of the cube, the physical representation, to something that's like 0.5 all around, just so it's a little bit smaller. And also, it looks just about right when we actually go ahead and chuck it in the game. And you can still see the outline of the box collision is just outside now, and it should work perfectly fine. fine for us. So let's go ahead and head over to the event graph so that we can actually start working on this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and get a reference to the box collision. And from this, I'm going to create a new onComponent begin overlap event. So now what we can use this for is to simply, have an event. So when this actually collides with the player, we can fire off these events. So the way we're going to do this is we're going to get the little execute pin here, and we're going to cast to the third person character. And the reason why we're doing this is because this is the only actor that, we want this event, this sequence of events to apply to. Also, by casting to it, we're going to be able to reference the third person character and any variables that are inside it. And if you remember from the last video, we actually put the player battery variable inside of the third person character. So now that I've done this cast to third person character, I can actually get the player battery. Or we can even set it and we can change it just like that. So let's go ahead and do that. So we've got our cast set up, and let's go ahead and set player battery. And we're going to make sure we hook it up on the execute side of things as well. And what we're going to do here is just do simply integer plus integer, and we're going to get a reference to the player battery. And the way we're going to do this is we're just going to add 25 to itself. So if it's 0, it will jump up to 25, if it's 50 it'll jump up to 75, and so on. So I'm going to just type in get player battery, and we're going to hook it up into the A for this. And by default it's set to 1, go ahead and change this to 25, and if we press compile, it should all work. I'm also going to do a quick print string so we can actually see what the return value of this is to see the new player battery. So I'm going to press compile, press play, and we're the return value of this is to see the new player battery. So I'm going to press compile, press play, and we're going to see what happens when we walk over one. So I haven't actually got any in the scene by the looks of things, so I'm going to make sure I drop a couple of these in here. So I'm going to put one in there, and I'm going to chuck another one in there, and another one, and maybe one more just because I can. And I'm going to press play. Now let's start running over these and let's see what happens. So you can see it's gone up to 75, 100, 125, 150, and you can see it's working. The functionality is there. However, you know, we want it to stop. At 100. We don't want it to go above. In addition to that, we also need to destroy the block once it's actually been touched, because we don't want it to be used more than once. So let's go ahead and do that. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get the do a branch to check whether or not it's now gone over 100. So the way I'm going to do this is integer is greater than, so we're going to check if it's greater than 100 now. So we're going to grab this, and if it's true, we're just going to set this to 100. So we're going to do the same thing over here, and we're going to hook up the target to our third person character because that's where it's stored. And we're going to set the player battery to 100. That is if it is above 100. If it's false, we're not going to do anything else because it's working just fine. And the last thing that I'm going to do then is I'm going to destroy the actor. So I'm just going to add in a destroy actor node. Oh, that's wrong. Destroy actor node. And make sure that you've got this hooked up to the false on the branch. Here, and 1 to the true as well, and that's going to be after you set it to 100 because you want to make sure all of the code is actually, fired off and it's working before you destroy it. So if I was to press compile now, and if I was to press play, if I jump in and start collecting these, you can see they destroy themselves as soon as we touch them, and, it's working just great. So that's pretty much everything for our pickup. There's one last thing which I'm also going to do, which is I'm going to import a couple of textures that I made, and I'm going to apply it to the box. You don't actually need to do this if you don't want. to. If you've got your own battery textures and stuff, you know, you can import your own. But I'm just going to quickly go over the process once again of how you can create the material and get it into the object inside of your blueprint. So I'm just going to quickly create a new material using the diffuse, and I'm going to open it up, and I'm going to hook up all the materials. Really quickly. So the first one I'm going to add in is my normal. I'm going to press T for texture sample while normal is selected, and I'm going to hook that up into normal. And now there should be a little bit more depth there, and I'm also going to add in the emissive map. You can see I've selected that, and I press T, and we've got it in there now. And I'm also going to use the multiply node to actually make it a little bit brighter, because by default it's not too bright. So I'm going to hook up the multiply to the emissive color just like that. And under A, I can just put in a constant, and this constant is just a value, so we're going to be multiplying this texture sample by this value. And I'm going to set this to something like 15. I'm going to press apply, I'm going to save it. It should look really great in a second, and I'm going to go ahead and chuck it into my blueprint now. Just give it a second to finish saving. I've got quite a slow hard drive, so it doesn't save as quick as I'd like, but you can see it's looking quite nice there. So let's open up my blueprints, find my battery pickup, and I'm going to go to the box. Not the box, sorry, the cube, my physical representation. I'm going to go to the viewport, and under materials, I'm going to change this to battery underscore pickup underscore diffuse map. And you can see it looks quite nice. If you wanted to, you could even add in your rotating movement and a bunch of other stuff. It's entirely up to you, but this is the functionality we now have our simple pickups, and pretty much the last step of all of this is to actually get it displayed on the player screen. So, you know, we actually have that little progress bar for our battery. So you can see they look quite great. Whenever we pick them up now, they just disappear. It's working awesome. Just like you guys, thanks for watching. Comment, like, and subscribe, and make sure you check out the next video where we will be creating the progress bar on the screen. So I will see you next time. Goodbye. Hey guys, Versus here and welcome back to the Unreal Engine 4 survival horror game series, and in today's video we're going to be continuing on with our flashlight. Having said that, we're going to be going over how we can actually display the progress bar for the flashlight battery system onto our HUD. So if you haven't watched the previous video, I advise that you go ahead and check it out, and from there you'll see that we created a simple flashlight. It's got a battery level, and whenever we, toggle it on using the F key, you can see our battery level integer goes down when it gets to 0 and it turns it off. Also, if you haven't watched the Unreal Engine 4 beginner tutorial series, I also advise you check that out so you can easily follow along and understand everything that we are doing. Anyway, without further ado, let's get into it. So if you haven't got the latest version of the heads-up display for this horror game, I advise you go ahead and check it out in the download description below where you can download it. Inside of this new HUD, I've got a simple little progress bar for the flash battery. And all it's going to do is pretty much just fill between each stage. So you can see when the battery is full, it's going to have this colored look, and when it's empty, it's going to have this gray look. And it's just going to pretty much fill as the integer for our flash battery goes up and down. So let's go ahead and show you how we can start bringing this into the engine. So the first thing you need to do is you need to actually get this into its own little layer, and it's really simple to do. Just select it, press Ctrl C, and then create a new Photoshop but document, and then it should automatically get the width and the height. 161 by 62 seems to work for me, so just go with that. And then all you gotta do is just copy and paste it in. Delete the background layer and then save it out. So I've already done that bit, and I've got the two images in this one bit here. So what I'm going to do now is I'm essentially just going to quickly save this out as a PNG file. If you don't have Photoshop, I'm also going to be including these PNG files inside of the the HUD zip folder in the description. I'm just going to call this flash_empty for now. And then I'm going to do the same thing for the full battery, and I'm going to call this flash_full. Flash_full. And that's it. That's all we need to do in Photoshop. So we can go ahead and close that. And I'm not going to save that because I've already got it all saved. And we need to start bringing it into the engine now. So what I've got to do now then is I've actually got to just import it in. So I've got to find wherever I put all of my HUD stuff. So I'm going to quickly find that. It's probably textures. Okay, so it's not in my textures. Where did I put it? Third person blueprints. Okay, so I honestly can't remember where I put it. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put it straight into the third person BP folder for now. And all I've got to do to import it is I've got to either press the import button here, or you can just click and drag it. So I'm going to select both of these just like that. And now that we've done that, we can actually put them into our widget. So if you remember, over the past few videos, we've been creating our HUD inside of the survival HUD widget. So if I double click and open it, you can see all the components that we've set up already. So you can see we've got our objective system. And we've got our hunger and our stamina bar. Now, the way this flash battery system is going to work is going to be pretty much exactly the same as our hunger and stamina. We're just going to be creating a progress bar, and then we're going to be setting up a simple binding to actually get the the integer for our battery system. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create the text that says flash battery, just like that, and I'm also going to change the color. So I'm just going to try and get it to be the same color as the text over here. Didn't work out too well. Let me just try that again. So I'm going to get the little color picker, and there you are. Okay, there we go. When we change the font, it should look a little bit better. So I'm also going to change that to the Feast of Flesh font that we're using. And okay, and I'm also going to scale this little box up a little bit more. Just so that we can have bigger text. So I'm going to uncheck that, and I'm going to increase the font size just ever so slightly to something like 50. There we are, and once again I'm going to anchor this to the bottom left hand corner. Now the reason why we're doing this is because we don't want it to go floating around the screen. We want it to stay right underneath the progress bar. So now that bit's done, let's go ahead and put in the progress bar. So we've got a progress bar in here. We're going to scale it up a little bit, and now we actually need to change the percentage, not the percentage, but the styling of it. So we need to change the background image and the fill image. So what we're going to do is we're going to get the background image, which is going to be the empty one. So if I go ahead and grab that, so I'm going to get it in my content browser, which is somewhere. 2 seconds. There you are. Flash underscore empty. I'm just going to select it, and then I'm going to press the little button here to, chuck it in there. And I'm going to do the same thing for the full image for the fill image over here. And I'm going to scale this up a little bit as it does look a little bit distorted. And I'm also going to make sure that I set my margins down to 0 so it doesn't stretch the image at all. And if we go ahead and compile, save, and press play, we should be able to see how our bar is starting to look now. So if I press play, if you're having this error here where it says can't play in editor when performing edit color stuff, all you got to do is just close the engine and open it up again. So we'll get back to that in a moment. But for now, let's actually go ahead and check out the functionality side of the appearance. When I adjust my percentage, you should be able to see it filling up just like this. And you can see there's some weird color problems here. So what I've actually got to do is I've got to make sure that I change the fill color and opacity to just a flat white. So there's no tint, it doesn't change the color, and it just uses the image instead. So you can see now it's filling up quite nicely. And when we actually create the simple binding for this, it should come out really nice. So let's quickly go ahead and set up the binding now, so the battery actually moves along with the variable. So to do that, I'm just going to go to progress, create a binding here, and I'm going to make sure that I actually name this one here. So I can see this is get percentage 2. I'm going to rename it to flash battery. And it's good practice to name all of the bindings that you create. You can say I haven't done it for the other two. We'll get back to that at some point. You should know which one's which, because you can see this one here is getting my player objective, this one is getting my stamina, and this one is getting my hunger. Just name it accordingly. Anyway, back to the flash battery. Let's go ahead and set this up. Now, if you remember, we actually stored the battery stuff inside of the third person character. So we've got to do a cast to the third person character. And once again, we've got to use the get player character to hook up into the object wildcard. And now, as the third person character, we can actually get the player stamina, not stamina, get the player battery. And now we've also got to do float divided by float over here, and because it's a value that goes from 0 to 1, and the way we've set up our variable, so it goes up from 0 to 100, we need to divide it by 100. So just go ahead and do it. Just do float divided by float, and make sure that the conversion from integer to float is down here and not the other way around. Otherwise it simply won't work. So I'm going to compile that, I'm going to save that, and hopefully our bar should all be working now. So you can see we've got our bar in the bottom left hand corner, and you should see that by default we've got about 50% battery. So if I press F, you can see it's now going up and down and it's working perfectly. If I go ahead and turn it off, pick up one of these little objects, you can see it's gone up to full now, and that is brilliant. So I'm going to do one last thing here. I'm just going to quickly change the scale of the battery on the widget because it does look a little bit too big. So I'm just going to scale that down, just like that, and I'm going to do the same for the text. 50 is a bit too big for me, I think. So I'm going to change this down to 45, nope, 40. Also, I don't think I actually anchored down my progress bar, so I've got to make sure I do that as well. So I'm going to anchor it to the bottom left hand corner, just like that. And yeah, okay, that's too big. So there we are, just going to leave it in the corner. Boom. So I'm going to compile, save, and let's see how this looks in the game now. So if I press play, it's looking quite nice and it still works. Anyway, that is pretty much everything for today. today's episode. I hope that you have enjoyed it. Don't forget to smash that like button, follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and so on. So thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Goodbye. Hey guys, Virtus here and welcome back to the Unreal Engine 4 survival horror game series. And in today's video, I've got something quite exciting for you. So we're going to be starting on the inventory system for our game. So if you take a quick look at the heads up display in my Photoshop document here, you can see I've started to put in a little bar where you can see some of the items that you've collected. And I've got things like logs, tinder boxes, and I'm also going to be putting in things like keys and all kinds of cool stuff. But the whole idea of this inventory system is to essentially allow the player to pick up items, store it in their inventory, and then they can use that later on. And whether that's going to be for objectives for the game or, you know, just to throw them away again because, you know, that's pretty darn cool. So what we're going to be doing in today's video is I'm going to be showing you how to set up the UI side of the inventory system. So we're going to be moving this little bar over to the user interface from Photoshop and into UMG and onto the player's HUD. And I'm also going to show you how we can set up some of the functionality behind it. So we're going to be setting up the different slots in our inventory. So this is going to be a 5-slot system. If you want to, you can do more, but I'm going to show you how to change, not how to change, but how to create variables for each of the 5 slots, so we can actually set up what goes into each slot. So we can have logs in one slot, or a tinderbox in another slot, or some keys in another slot, and so on. And we're also going to show you how to change the images based on the object in that slot. So it's probably going to take a few videos to do all of this. I'm going to try and break it up as best I can. But without further ado, let's go ahead and get into this. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that you've got the latest version of the heads-up display. If you don't have it, you can find it in the description below. So go ahead and download it, and you can see I've got this simple little bar. Hey guys, Virtus here and welcome back to the Unreal Engine 4 survival horror game series, and in
Downsizing takes pressure right off. We live like kings.
Oh my God.
Your $152,000 translates to $12 million.
What do you think of my place? Pretty nifty, huh?
And in today's video, I've got something quite exciting for you. So we're going to be starting on the inventory system for our game. So if you take a quick look at the heads-up display in my Photoshop document here, you can see I've started to put in a little bar where you can see some of the items that you've collected. And I've got things like logs, tinder boxes, and I'm also going to be putting in things like keys and all kinds of cool stuff. But the whole idea of this inventory system is to essentially allow the player to pick up items, store it in their inventory, and then they can use that later on. And whether that's going to be for objectives for the game or, just to throw them away again because, that's pretty darn cool. So what we're going to be doing in today's video is I'm going to be showing you how to set up the UI side of the inventory system. So we're going to be moving this little bar over to the user interface from Photoshop. On, and whether that's going to be for objectives for the game or just to throw them away again because that's pretty darn cool. So what we're going to be doing in today's video is I'm going to be showing you how to set up the UI side of the inventory system. So we're going to be moving this little bar over to the user interface from Photoshop and into UMG and onto the player's HUD. And I'm also going to show you how we can set up some of the functionality behind it. So we're going to be setting up the different slots in our inventory. So this is going to be a 5-slot system. If you want to, you can do more, but I'm going to show you how to change, not how to change, but how to create variables for each of the 5 slots so we can actually set up what goes into each slot. So we can have logs in one slot or a tinderbox in another slot or some keys in another slot and so on. And we're also going to show you how to change the images based on the object in that slot. So it's probably going to take a few videos to do all of this. I'm going to try and break it up as best I can. But without further ado, let's go ahead and get into this. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that you've got the latest version of the heads-up display. If you don't have it, you can find it in the description below. So go ahead and download it and you can see I've got this simple little bar. Now, all I'm going to do here quickly is I'm going to try and and export this into its own little file, and then save it out as a PNG ready to put onto the HUD. Now I've done that already. All I did was just select it and then create a new Photoshop document. I've selected it, press Ctrl C, got it in there, and then all I got to do is delete the background layer, and I'm going to save this out as a PNG. Now I've done that, I'm going to save this as inventory bar. Now don't forget, all the files that I create or use in this video I'm going to have in the description below, so just go ahead and check it out just to make sure you've got everything you need. But for now, that's all I need. Also, one quick thing I wanted to note is that I have actually moved the flash battery bar all the way up over here in the top left to make space for the inventory. Now, it's a really simple thing to do inside of the Unreal Engine. All you got to do is just quickly click and drag it. Anyway, let's get into the game and, well, not the game, but the engine, and show you exactly what I've done. So I'm going to quickly open up the project again, and I'm going to make sure I am completely up to date with where you guys are. So just give it a few seconds to load and we'll get things started. So in the meantime, while it's loading, if you want to, you can feel free to, so in the meantime, you can feel free to go ahead and just click the like button, hit the subscribe button, share the video, do whatever you got to do. And it seems to be open now, so let's carry on. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to quickly import that file that we just created from Photoshop. So to do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my, not my textures, let's have a look. Where have I put all of my HUD stuff? I'm not very good with storing my files. I keep changing the location each video or something, maybe. So I'm just going to quickly go through it. So I can see I've got some of my stuff here, flash empty, flash full. So I'm just going to go ahead and put it in there. So I'm just going to pretty much just click and drag it in just like that. It's just how simple it is to import an image into our game engine. So now we've done that, let's go ahead and actually open up our HUD widget, because that's where we want to put this little inventory bar. So I can see my HUD assets are all in here, so I should probably do it in there, so I should probably import my inventory bar into here instead, inside of my HUD assets folder. It doesn't really matter where you store it, just it's nice to be able to keep track of where of your stuff, wherever your stuff is. Anyway, like I said, let's go ahead and open up my HUD widget. Now, our HUD widget, if you remember, is where we store all of the information and images and stuff like that for our heads-up display. So, like I said, what I have done is I've actually moved the flashlight battery bar up there, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag an image in, just like that, and I'm going to chuck it down at the bottom, and this is going to be our inventory bar. It's going to show us exactly what's in the inventory system. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use an image as the background, and under HUD assets I'm going to go and grab my little picture here just to make it a little bit more visually appealing, and I'm going to chuck it in there. And now that I've done that, I'm going to go and scale it up and place it wherever I want. And I'm also going to anchor it to the bottom just so it doesn't go floating about. So I'm going to press compile, save, and I'm going to press play just to test it looks quite nice. I can see it's now in the center of my screen and it's looking quite good. So there's a few things we need to do inside of the UI. So we need to set up a couple of images for each slot inside of our inventory system. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create 5 of these little slots, just like that. And once I've done that, I'm going to pretty much just chuck them in here, just like this. And I'm going to put them in one by one, just like that, and I'm going to try and keep the same size, but I'm going to do it manually, as when I created this image inside of Photoshop, not everything was the same size. So I'm just going to put all of these in here, allowing a little room, just a little bit of leeway, so we can work with